Well, it's totally over for GM, and not saying they're going to close their doors tomorrow, but you are seeing a rapid decline of General Motors as the auto apocalypse is taking grip, and more people around the nation are finally figuring out that just because car prices rose, they weren't going to stay there forever. As a matter of fact, I did a handful of videos talking about how and when or why the auto market was going to collapse, and I got a lot of hate mail for that. But it's weird because most people actually think that whatever the situation is, whether it be stocks, auto prices, home prices, that whatever they are today and they're there yesterday, they're going to be like that tomorrow. And they don't understand cycles, both inflationary cycles or deflationary cycles. Check out this story. It's out of Union Rayo. Goodbye GM to cease production and lay off more than 1,600 workers by the end of 2024. It says General Motors has announced that it will lay off 1,695 workers at its Fairfax assembly plant in Kansas. The company made an announcement in worker adjustment and retraining notification notice issued earlier this week, signaling significant cuts as a part of its long-term production strategy. Now, let me stop and say, do I believe that GM's going to close its doors? No. Do I believe GM's going to need a bailout from the government? Yes. And yet, it's sad because most people don't realize that companies like Chrysler, uh, GM, and other companies have had multiple bailouts from the government because they do this over and over again. And what happens when you constantly give bailouts to a company? Well, it's like a child that you're constantly giving whatever it wants. You finally spoiled the child to where they go off on a rampage because they know, don't worry, mommy and daddy's got my back. I'm not going to get in trouble. Daddy doesn't spank. We used to say that at the fire station all the time when we saw management let other management members do stupid, crazy stuff, but it's because we're all in it together. Says here the layoffs come in two phases. The layoffs will occur in two separate phases, impacting both full time and temporary employees. According to a GM spokesperson, the first round of layoffs is set to begin on November 18th, right before the holiday season, affecting 686 full time employees who will face temporary layoffs, while 250 temporary workers will have their employment permanently terminated. In a follow up move, GM plans to initiate a second wave of layoffs on January 12th of 2024. During this phase, an additional 759 full-time employees will be placed on temporary layoff, further impacting the workforce at the Kansas-based plant. Now, if you work for the Kansas plant and you're being laid off, my heart goes out to you, honestly. But the thing you need to know is that this is a massive trend. It's going to get bigger and bigger. We're moving into an economic crash. It has already begun. It started with a wave of tech layoffs, then bank layoffs. Now we're moving into automotive and other layoffs you're going to see coming this next year. And this is the sad thing. These large companies, they're not going to tell you that you're being laid off November or in January. They're not even going to tell you if you're good for your job for the rest of the year, next year, because they don't want people jumping ship now and trying to find jobs. It's a horrible life. It's a horrible way of doing things. Now, when they're talking about these layoffs, they hit a couple of different issues. So the Cadillac XT4 production, one of the primary reasons behind these layoffs is the pause in the production of the Cadillac XT4, a luxury SUV manufactured at the Fairfax plant. GM announced earlier this year that it would halt production of the XT4 after January of 2025, leading to temporary job losses until the company resumes production in late 2025. The truth is most people can't afford these cars. I went and looked at a Cadillac Escalade, the brand new one, because I wanted to see how the seats work, those massage seats. Holy cow, they're incredible. But that car was like $140,000. Who in the heck would buy that other than a rapper or a rapper? GM's investment in Fairfax assembly plant. GM says it has plans to invest heavily in the Fairfax plant as part of its strategy to shift towards electric vehicle production. Yeah, because that's worked for all these other car companies. In a statement to Reuters, a company, I'm telling you, if you had GM stock, watch out. I had a friend that owned GM stock before the Great Recession, and they just canceled it. He had a bunch of stock. I don't remember, it was like $20,000 worth of stock. It's gone. It's canceled. It's no more. And then remember what happened. The government bailed them out. And then to finally pay off the bailout, they were paying it whatever, little by little. They finally, just for the last little bit, hey, we're going to reissue stock. He never got it. It was just vaporized. We're talking about a massive company, not just some small, OTC company. They just evaporated that stock. And I want you to understand that that can happen to all kinds of industries that have stock trading on major indexes. They just turned around and they said, oh, we're going to reissue new stock a few years later, sell it, and then take the funds and pay off the government. It's absolutely disgusting and corrupt. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're holding on to some of these companies that Jim Cramer's talking about are buys. Um, so they're talking about, as they're laying people off, they're investing approximately 390 into the Kansas plant, $390 million to revamp it, to retool it, to build electric cars. All right. So it says to facilitate that transaction, GM will need to install new machinery and tooling, which will lead to the temporary layoff of workers until production is set to resume. The spokesperson confirmed that GM anticipates that full production at the facility will restart mid 2025. That doesn't matter though. Lay everyone off for the next 6 months. You can't keep them on employed while you're retooling. Think about it. That's how desperate they are, right? We're going to cut all those people. Well, you have full time and part time employees that are being terminated, and you can't hold on to them if you expect to be up and running by a year from now. You're going to lay them off in November, right before Christmas, and then you're going to lay them off also in January. But don't worry, there'll be more jobs coming back in in June, July of next year. See, this is what big corporations think of you. You're slaves. That's what it is. That's why we all need to have a side hustle, side business, and slowly grow that into a business. We need to bring America back from massive monopolies like Walmart, Target, these massive car companies, and let's start again, start over, and just start little businesses. Like what happened when people were coming over from other parts of the world. Immigrants were coming here through Ellis Island, and they were starting barbershops, restaurants, hotels. Shoe companies, things like that. Let's start that again. I know it sounds crazy. Most people think it's impossible, but it's absolutely not. As a matter of fact, they didn't have social media back then. Do you know how easy it is to start your business and advertise for free on social media? Absolutely blows my mind that people don't understand this. Then they go into deeper, like the what's going on with the plant. I don't really want to share any of that because it's total crap. But here's the point, and I think this is very important for you to realize: when there's tragedy, there's also opportunity. Remember in the Great Depression that there was 25% unemployment. It was like the worst we'd ever seen. But that meant that it was 1 out of 4 people didn't have a job. What you have to realize is that 3 people had a job. See, when you start to look at the glass half full, your life changes forever. When you start to realize, I can start a side hustle or a business, and I'll crush it. It's important to know how big of a deal that is. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a discount. It doesn't come around very often, but it's $199 for the How to Start a Business Side Hustle course. All of the students that have taken it that I've been hearing from are finding massive success because most people just don't have a plan of where to start and take all these steps to end up here. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link down below. But I didn't have a course. That's why I started one, actually. I didn't have a course when I started selling things in garage sales on eBay, buying electric trains, doing all my side hustles with trailers and tractors. And, I went from making, an extra couple $100 a month so that me and my wife could go on dates to making, I'm not joking, close to $50 and $100,000 a month. It was a real thing. I was still a full-time firefighter the whole time. If you want to check it out, the link's down below to that. But you don't need a course to do it yourself. If you want a time hack and to save a lot of trouble and money, there's the course for you. All of my learning lessons and all my successes put into one course. I hope you got something out of this. The Economic Ninja is out.